In other news, the UN General Assembly this Thursday is set to vote on a resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the opening of all Israeli border crossings for aid, and the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas. Drafted by Spain, it also strongly condemns the use of the starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. Now, it's worth mentioning that last week, the UN Security Council, for its part, failed to pass a similar resolution that demanded a truce and urged Israel to lift all restrictions on aid. The U.S. was the only one of the 15 members to veto the text, and this because it was not linked to the release of hostages. While there are no vetoes in the 193-member General Assembly, the measure is expected to pass, though the body's resolutions are, of course, not legally binding. For more on the latest situation that we're seeing play out in the Gaza Strip in the meantime, Jorge Moreira da Silva joins me on set. He is the Executive Director of the United Nations Office for Project Services, also known by its acronym UNOPS. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. So the main aid organization functioning in the Gaza Strip right now is currently the opaque, if not controversial, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Can you remind us about the context that kind of led up to the creation of this very specific group and talk about why it is controversial?
Thank you. Indeed, we are dealing with a new mechanism, the Israeli mechanism, that tried to replace the United Nations mechanism. There was a mechanism called the 2720 mechanism approved by the Security Council that was managed by UNOPS, that was basically approving all aid entering to Gaza, ensuring that there was accountability, transparency, monitoring of the aid. And it was functioning, and it showed during the ceasefire that it allowed massive deployment of aid. And suddenly, this mechanism, the United Nations mechanism, was stopped and replaced by this Israeli mechanism. This mechanism from Israel doesn't respect the international humanitarian law. It's militarized, it's privatized, it forces displacement. We have been seeing your footage showing massive displacement of people just to have some access to food, high concentration of people, 144 people killed in the last 2 days trying to get the food. So we need to bring the UN back. We need to bring the United Nations mechanism back. This is the best way to ensure unimpeded access to food, but even before that, not just food, but all elements, but even before that, we need to ensure that even the fuel that is inside Gaza can be acceded.
Is your organization, the United Nations Office for Project Services, able to carry out any meaningful operations at this stage in the Gaza Strip now?
Very limited operations. The 2 areas where we've been working are highly restricted. One was the monitoring of all aid, and now we have managed only to enter once in one of the crossings, so all monitoring of aid is stopped, and the other area is the fuel. This is particularly serious because fuel means water, fuel means ambulances, fuel means bread, fuel means hospitals functioning, and without fuel, none of those things will function. We have 2.7 million liters of fuel inside Gaza. UNOPS procured and storage 2.7 million liters. We can't exceed that storage. We've been trying. All access has been denied, and only the small part of that fuel, 150,000 liters, it will disappear in 2 days. I just been told that by my team that when they were trying to get to those storage facilities, that we were caught into shelling, strikes, and they have to return. So we really need, and I call on Israel, to ensure that UNOPS can get into the storage facilities, bring the fuel to the bakeries, to the hospitals, to the water facilities. This is life-saving, and there is no reason. This is not acceptable. Even wars have rules. The rules are not being respected. We need a full implementation of international humanitarian law, release of the hostages, ceasefire. But I think that it's fundamental to take quick decisions. I really hope that the discussions in New York in a few days on the 2-state solution will give a boost on diplomacy. It's what we need as well.
You recently wrote a piece about the importance of trust and transparency in the aid distribution process specifically. Can you talk more about how these mechanisms are supposed to work and where trust and transparency appear to be lacking on both sides of the Israel-Hamas war visibly?
I've been sharing this with several governments. If they ask today how many consignments have been brought into Gaza, how much food is being distributed, they don't know. With our mechanism, everything was online. All approvals of aid were centralized. We knew what was rejected and why. When Israel rejected the consignment, the entire world was aware of the reasons and what has been rejected. We were aware of the final use of the aid. So this kind of transparency means trust, and that trust is fundamental in an operation like this. I was quite happy to hear when I visit Gaza, and I visited Gaza twice, that the mechanism was seen as an enabler for aid. So that enabler disappeared. So we need to bring the mechanism back because the mechanism, it's what helps the other UN agencies to operate in a transparent, accountable, and predictable manner. It stopped.
Be it the conflict in Gaza or Ukraine or Sudan or all the many conflicts that we see in the Sahel region as well, to list just a few, it's very difficult to reach any conclusion other than the relative failure of the international system to impose and enforce international law. In what state do you expect to see this system in the coming months ahead, if it is unable to enforce its own mechanisms?
United Nations, it's the United Nations. It's not the Secretariat of the United Nations. So we need political will. There is no problem with the logistics. I always said that in the last 2 years, the problem was never related with logistics. It was always related with political will. We need political will to ensure that all the pallets of food, of water, medicaments that we have outside Gaza can be brought to Gaza. So we need to ensure that political pressure will provide the results. I call on all parties to stop the war, to get the ceasefire, to release of the hostages, but I also call on all United Nations to mobilize themselves, to call for action, because what we are seeing in your footage is unacceptable. In the 21st century, seeing children amputated, children fighting to get a dish of a small portion of food, people starving, being forced displaced, without any kind of hope in the future is unacceptable. I think that one day we'll be telling about this. History will record this. But rather than waiting for the history to tell us what happened, we need to stop it now. This atrocity must stop now.
Jorge Moreira da Silva of the United Nations Office for Project Services, thank you very much for joining us on set today.
Thank you.